Hello and welcome to the latest Royal Roundup from TalkTV. So pop the kettle on. This is The Royalty. I'm Sarah Hewson. Coming up on today's show, Prince William goes where no royal has gone before. We'll also be discussing the King's tears at the public's reaction to his cancer diagnosis. And Harry and Meghan have allegedly held talks about what they might do if Harry's bid for reconciliation with his family fails. Joining me today to discuss all that and more are the Sun's royal photographer Arthur Edwards and the Evening Standard's royal editor Robert Jobson. Great to have you both here. Now, earlier this week, Prince William called for an end to the fighting as soon as possible in a strongly worded intervention on the Israel-Gaza conflict. The Prince of Wales said there is a desperate need for increased humanitarian support to Gaza and for the hostages to be released. His statement came as he visited the British Red Cross in London. It's caused a huge amount of reaction, with some claiming the Prince of Wales should not be involving himself in political matters. So let's discuss this now. It was an unequivocal statement, very bold from the Prince of Wales, perhaps the strongest we've heard from him. Why did he do it, Robert, and what does he hope to achieve from it?
Well, I think that, like any right-minded person, seeing the devastation and the killing that's going on had an impact upon him. He had been to the area, of course, in 2018. He'd been to the West Bank and just felt he had to make an intervention. Nobody can really say that what he's saying is wrong. I mean, because ultimately, the amount of people that are dying is just horrendous. And if there's a way of stopping that, then I'm sure everyone would try to work towards that. But the question mark of whether the Prince of Wales, a member of the royal family, should say it, well, I think if he can't say it, then nobody else can, because the king can't really, because that's the only time it becomes a constitutional problem, if he's in conflict with his own government. But I think William cleared it with the Foreign Office. He made a statement that I think was right. And I think a lot of people agreed with him that, there's got to look at this as in a humanitarian way, and I don't think he's done anything wrong.
There'll have been an awful lot of thought before a statement like this was released, Arthur, won't there? What does this tell us about the Prince of Wales and the kind of king that he will be?
Well, I think it needed to be said. And I think, as Robert says, most people agree with him. But, he's not an elected politician, and he's straying into politics, and, that's kind of dangerous if you're a member of the royal family. You're there by the will of the people, and it's an accident of birth that you are a member of the royal family. But at the same time, the killing that's going on there, and he said, stop the killing, and it's got to stop. I think every decent-minded person thinks the same, and so in many ways, I'm glad he said it. Although reading, the Times leader this morning just took him to pieces on it. Actually criticised him for doing it, saying that he should never have done that. He's not a politician, and just a member of the greatest royal family in the world. But nevertheless, But as Robert says, he got clearance from the Foreign Office. We went to Israel with him, and we went to the West Bank, and
that is what. That has inspired this statement, hasn't it? Because we're told from Kensington Palace this was a very personal statement. And ever since that visit in 2018, he was the first member of the royal family to visit Israel and the West Bank. That's had a profound impact on him.
It was, and I think that's where he became of age as a statesman, because I think he was brilliant. because, going from Israel and then to the occupied territories, it was brilliant. And in fact, I think, when we were coming back on the plane, I think I meant to mention that to him, it was a great piece of statesmanship.
The most diplomatically sensitive thing he had done.
Point, yeah.
But the thing is, he saw what it was like in the occupied territories. It's so, when you cross over from Israel there, the difference is immense. And he, obviously, it affected me when I saw it, and for the first time, and it must have affected him. And I think he must have been thinking about that and felt, I've got to say something now. he's being criticised for it, but, you know, the Queen was criticised when she made a harmless remark outside a Crathy Church about the referendum.
Yes, now, but that's a different way of working, isn't it?
They were criticised for it. There was criticism of
moments with a well-wisher, or the telephone conversation with David Cameron. This was a direct intervention.
I think that what Arthur said is right. I actually take... I don't believe there is a constitutional issue because he's the Prince of Wales. And if you remember, as the heir to the throne, our current king was making very big statements politically about inner cities and other issues in the 70s and 80s, and he was criticised for being in conflict with the Thatcher government. As Prince of Wales, you're not really, as heir to the throne, there's no constitutional issue here. So I think they've got that slightly wrong. That's between the sovereign, and that's really where it matters. As for as a member of the royal family, he's got eyes and ears. He's been to the West Bank. He's allowed to intervene and make a comment like this. I just think
is it his place though? Because let's take Nigel Farage's response to this.
I thought that
Stick
was very
to the
flippant.
BAFTAs.
Yeah, I thought that was very flippant.
That was a
bit cheap, Nigel saying that. But the point of it is, I can understand why politicians think that. But have a look at what's been happening in Parliament only yesterday. They look like a bunch of school children behaving with absolutely no decorum and no respect to what the situation involved. I thought that was all to do with procedure and party politics, and it just made us look very cheap as a country. But actually, this was quite statesmanlike.
But the timing of this, coming as it did the day before this crunch vote in the Commons, was that all choreographed and coordinated? I mean, the visits to the Red Cross had been postponed from last month, hadn't they? But how
Nothing happens by accident, so
no.
I don't think. I think he knew that he was going to create a stir. I think he knew that people would react in this way. He'd spoken to his father, we believe, at Sandringham the weekend beforehand, and he'd cleared it with the Foreign Office. I don't think he could have done much more, but really, at the end of the day, a lot of people are now speaking out against this.
Also, Robert, it needed to be said, but, I mean, you're right, the politicians couldn't come to say it yesterday. They couldn't even agree amongst themselves, and they were supposed to, as one, support this amendment, but they didn't. And
it struck me also a little bit like his mother. When she said, over the landmines, this was a humanitarian intervention.
Rather than a political.
She was criticised. You remember, Robert?
Yeah, she was criticised. When she basically saying, we've got to stop these kids having their legs and arms blown off. Well, that's all really effectively he's saying. And he's saying, look, they require sanitation and food and water at the very least.
Yeah.
Is that such a terrible thing to say? I don't think so.
And she was doing it when she was talking to the kids who lost their arms and legs, blown off by landmines, No, she's right. He's just copying his mother, saying it because it needed to be said.
He was very careful in his choice of words as well, didn't he? He didn't actually use the word ceasefire, which in itself has become politically very loaded. He talked about the fighting needs to stop.
But you
as
said,
soon
what
as
sort of king is he going to be? I don't think the two roles equate. As our king today says, I don't think as king he could operate in the same way.
But are we seeing in William someone who is less prepared to sit back in the shadows and somebody who does want to use his voice and his platform? Because I think there have been a number of occasions where he has spoken out on issues. I'm thinking about the royal racism row, for example, where he has been pretty quick, actually, to come out and speak. And I wonder whether that tells us something about who he is. He's not necessarily prepared to be that never complain, never explain.
Yeah, and I think he's right. But then again, sometimes coming out with a quick response is not always the best way because things unfold. And so I think that I believe the comments that came out after that Commonwealth tour to Jamaica were, I think he should have probably just been a bit more circumspect then and not talked so openly until he'd come back and spoken then to the Queen and the then Prince of Wales. So sometimes it's good to respond, but I do believe that actually when it comes to he's now that much nearer the throne, you have to be a little bit more circumspect sometimes.
But I thought he overreacted over Susan Hussey. I think he acted too quickly there. He investigated over that. I mean, that poor woman threw hell out of that, And obviously she's back in the fold now. But she was really hurt by that, and they acted too quickly because they do not want to be known as racist, and that's all because of Harry not Harry, Meghan making that statement about the colour of Archie's skin.
But it's the way the media. I mean, the fact is, we were demanding, weren't we, a response? We were in Boston. We were demanding a response.
Yep.
And he said, "We are not a racist family." He said that.
That was immediately after the Oprah.
Immediately after that.
Yeah.
So it's a very sensitive.
You're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't.
One of the issues we talk a lot about with this royal family, and particularly since the death of the late Queen, is its relevance, and particularly to a younger generation, how they reach out to a younger generation. And I wonder if members of the royal family, like the Prince of Wales, speaking out on issues of global significance, the issues that everybody cares about, actually is a way of becoming a little bit more relevant.
Well, I mean, my son's at university at the moment, and this, obviously, Gaza and what's going on is, hugely important to these on the campus, and people talking all the time. So the relevance of the under-25s, which are not engaging in, according to the polls, with the royal family, is quite important. I can see why William has not only intervened because he wants to intervene, because he feels that, but it just shows you that he is more connected with what is going on and what is being discussed. It's more global and less focused on the UK, more about humanity as a global phenomenon rather than, let's worry about ourselves. And I think that in that way, it shows you that he is in touch.
Now, prior to this, William was at the BAFTAs on Sunday night at the Royal Festival Hall, and he apologised for his wife's absence, adding she does love the BAFTAs. Saw him there on the red carpet, Arthur, flying solo. And actually, this is normally one of those engagements, the two of them together, looking extraordinarily glamorous on the red carpet, those kind of photos that you
the year before, when they walked down the
get.
carpet together, they were in white. Yeah, it was a stunning picture. Couldn't agree more, but, he's supporting it. And, he did cut back on his work after Catherine had her operation. So, but this is, is important. We support the film industry. And he turned out, and he as usual, was brilliant. I mean, one of that pictures we saw earlier, when he's talking...
There's a picture that's gone viral, isn't there, when he's talking to some of the rising star nominees.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. I wished I'd have taken that picture. It was a cracking snap, and I thought he, it just shows that, he's got a great sense of humour, and he does see the funny side of things all the time, like his father. And so what a position. 1 minute he's making sort of incredible statements about stopping the fighting, and next minute he's laughing and joking with actresses. What a life they've got. But William's doing a brilliant job, I think, and with Catherine back soon, hopefully they'll conquer the world. That couple, they've just everything they do it right, and they're just a great. We're so lucky that this our royal family and the future is in such good hands.
And he did say he hadn't actually been able to watch as many of the films as normal because, attentions had been focused elsewhere.
I mean, he said that they used to watch them both together, didn't they? And but obviously she's not been very well and is recovering. And I think what you're seeing here with William is him really coming into himself. He's a tall, good-looking guy, and he's very much representing the royal family. I wouldn't say single-handedly, but he is the focus. And as time goes on with the king, I think that the king's going to be probably a little bit less visual over the next coming months, and he's stepping up to that role, and I think he's doing a very good job in representing his father.
Now, King Charles said messages of support had reduced him to tears as he was seen for the first time back on official duties since revealing his cancer diagnosis. He was meeting Prime Minister Rishi Sunak at Buckingham Palace, who said it was wonderful to see him looking so well. Now, Arthur, this was the weekly audience with the Prime Minister, but it was the first time it had happened since mid-December, I think, because of Christmas and then the King's health, first time in person at least. But fantastic to see the King working, and also the cameras being allowed in. And
in for a while, because that over the years, that meeting's always been top secret, never getting out a word, they shake hands and you're kicked out the room. But no, I think it was lovely, and I think what the Prime Minister said, the whole country supporting you, and I think that gives him great comfort. But, talking about the letters he gets and the messages he gets, I mean, he's got a brilliant start to his reign, and he's just, I think he's people just appreciate that. And, you know, his great speeches after his mother's death. I mean, an incredible man. And you know, he said they reduced him to tears, some of the
Now, I was interested in that because,
got.
you know, some people might not realise this about the King, but actually it's quite an emotional
Yes,
man.
he is. And he cares about those things. And you know, I'll tell you a little story once. We had a little party for him once, and I spoke to him. I said, look, thanks for that. And he said, you know, he said, one of your readers, he said, never got to meet me, he said. And she wrote to me and telling me that. And he said, so I sent her a picture. You know, that's the sort of thing he is. You know, why would a man so busy take the trouble to do that? You know, it's those little things and it counts. And he, you know, he must have been overwhelmed by but you see, also revealing what was wrong with him was a massive, because as he said about, you know, so many people are more interested in the cancer charities now. He's been working with those for years. I remember once Breakthrough, you know, where the girls do the walk with their fancy
In the bras,
decorated
I've done
bras.
that, yeah.
Well, he walked with them at Highgrove once, you know, it was a great picture, and he was there involved with it. And I've been with him on several jobs when he's been at Breakthrough, you know, and they're doing this huge, massive research to find the causes of it and to find early prevention. So he's, you know, it's amazing what he's done for the cancer, but now he's getting treatment himself. And you know, so we're all hoping, I mean, I am definitely praying for him, you know, that he does get through this and comes out fighting the other side, you know, because he is, you know, he's such a hard-working, decent man, you know, and I just think he's just got a setback now, but he's conquering it. And I've done several jobs with the Queen lately, and she doesn't look like a concerned wife. She's happy, she's laughing, she's just been fantastic. And the jobs
You
are
did that
overrun.
job, the medical detection job.
Absolutely brilliant,
dogs,
you know. And she of course loves dogs. She got two rescue dogs herself, and she was just. I mean, and if you watch those dogs work, Sarah, that's just amazing. They just, you know, 5 people lined up. One of them's got something wrong with them. This dog picks it. And then they do it again with nobody, and the dog just walks past everybody. It's just unbelievable what those dogs can smell. And someone once described to me about a dog smell. He said, when you walk into your house and the stew's cooking and you smell the stew cooking, he said, when the dog comes in, he smells every ingredient in the stew. And it just tells you how sort of, how they're put to use. But she's been supporting that for years now. And it was their 15th anniversary. And she was so happy and laughing. And so, many people said, you know, we wish the King well, and she just smiles and says thank you. But I think he's getting the best possible treatment you can get. And, you know, they say 2/3 of cancer can be cured, so, you know, please God, he's come through it soon.
Yeah. Absolutely. And that decision by the palace to let the cameras in, very deliberate, because obviously there's a huge amount of public concern and a wish to see him
I think
looking himself.
I mean, when we said let the cameras in, I think it was shot by the press secretary on his phone, to be honest.
Was he really?
Yeah, I don't think it was a big. I think it was.
But to release that footage,
I think that was a clear. That's a clear strategy by the palace to make sure the King is not just seen walking to church.
Yeah.
Once every couple of weeks, wherever it is. I think it was a strategy that they're showing that he's still got his hands on the tiller, that he's continuing his constitutional responsibilities, and it's a wise move by them. I mean, also, they've got to bear in mind that, you know, whatever treatment the King is having is going to be debilitating, it's going to be quite tiring. And I think, although I do agree wholeheartedly with Arthur that we all hope and pray he comes through the other end, I do think he probably will have to operate in a slightly different way going forward. I mean, he is very much a workaholic, 18-hour days, are not unheard of. I think that he probably will have to be more delegate more, and just take it a bit easier, because, you know, he operates now. When we were on that tour to Rwanda, and he finished me off. He's too. You know, you know, he was operating like a man 25 years younger than he is.
I think you meant Kenya, Rob. That's the one that killed us both.
Oh yeah, Rwanda was bad enough, and Kenya, Kenya as well. Actually, both of them.
But this week, you know, seeing him, he had a Windsor estate day, didn't he? Conducting some business at Windsor, and then he met with the Privy Council, and he met the Prime Minister in person.
All of those things are manageable and constitutional duties, and I think probably where I think he used to delve very deeply, and Arthur knows this, was his intrinsic or forensic looking at the charity work, looking at other things that could be done. that sort of thing, I think he may have to delegate more.
And the thing he does... Sorry, Rob, go on.
Because you can't do everything. And I think that, you know, if you look at the way the Queen, they operate with the Queen, they don't... She's made it very clear that she's going to do a certain number of engagements. But I remember us being up at Dumfries House once, and the King would literally, the Queen had gone to bed, he was still carrying on with the engagement. He was literally falling asleep as he was standing up.
Yeah, I mean, Harry wrote about that in his book, didn't he? Falling asleep in his place. Yeah.
And he was like swaying. And I just think, you know, somewhere along the line, he's going to listen to his body and realise, unfortunately, he's not 25 years younger and probably just has to take it easy.
I also think Camilla has also made him, you know, stop it, because, you know, she has to drag him out when they're on holidays, even at Balmoral. He still works.
Well, it's like that Sun headline, wasn't it, when they was driving the car and it said, Camilla's saying, slow down.
Slow down,
and it was, you know, everyone at the time was going,
I think,
really,
you know, I think he's got to do that. You know, he doesn't even watch television. He stops working, or he's reading, or he's...
I remember him saying once, you know, like when he was, because I like painting, he's great watercolourist. So I said, "Are you painting?" I hope he is now. And he says, "I don't have time. I haven't got time to do this." He's very conscious of the sands of time, you know.
Yeah.
New banknotes featuring the image of the King will enter circulation on the 5th of June. That's been announced by the Bank of England. The King's portrait will be the only change to the existing designs of the £5, £10, £20 and £50 notes. So we've already got the King on our coins, now on the notes as well.
That was, you know, it's just normal, I think, that's going to happen. And but they can keep the Queen, and, you know, the Queen's still going to be all right in your pocket. Don't worry, you can still spend the money with the Queen on it.
Get a whole selection of them and put them.
Frame them.
Because my gran did that, and my nan did that, and she used to have all the coins from Victoria and things like that.
Before they go out of circulation,
I remember once
at some stage they will.
Let's talk about the younger generation. Prince George is gearing up to move schools. He currently attends Lambrook, an independent school in Berkshire, where he's been since the family's move to Windsor in 2022. But at age 10, the future King's secondary schooling has become a priority for the Prince and Princess of Wales. There's been great speculation about which esteemed institution will be selected. Another week, another school making it onto the list, and St Edward's School, or Teddy's, is the latest school to receive royal consideration, we're told. I mean, it's not imminent, is it? He's still got another, 2.5 years left at Lambrook, but the decisions start to be made now. What does this tell us about...
I think it tells us, really, that they're doing the rounds. You know, I think they're having a look at all the schools. A lot of people expected him to go to Eton. He may well still do that. We don't know. It does seem that, from what we're hearing, that co-ed is something that they're interested in. Marlborough was where Kate went. Look, I think they're doing that thing at the moment where they're just checking out all the schools and which ones would suit them. It seems to me that they would probably like all of the children to go to the same school, because you don't have any problem with security. They've also got that sense of being together as a group, and they're looking at things in a different way. I mean, you know, you go back to when, you know, we were watching, you know, we were just doing the school runs with Diana and turning up at the schools. It was a different world.
At least they was going home every night. I mean, if he goes to that school in Oxford, he's obviously got a board there.
I think I think boarding will happen.
The price they're charging, I think the board's got to be pretty good as well.
Boarding is pretty good these days.
So, you know, I think they're looking for that. But, you know, whether or not they want their child to go and be boarded, I mean, what's the point of having children you send them away to school at a young age?
Because I'll tell you why. Because what are those? I mean, my son. A lot of they do is a lot of that social bonding happens after school hours, and a lot of sport and extra stuff happens. And I think at that stage it does. And I think
I like seeing my children every night, not just now and again.
Well, you know, each their own.
They've got some time to make that decision, but it will certainly be very interesting.
They spend more time coming home when they're in independent school than they do when they're actually...
not every night.
Well... Were you home every night then?
No, when I could, I
think
tried every time.
You were in Australia most of the time.
Yeah, I try to get home every night, and if I knew my children would be there, I wouldn't have to go and wait for half term to go and see them.
You were away most of the time.
No, only 3 months a year, Rob.
Prince Harry and Meghan have been reflecting on their meaningful trip to Canada, which they took in honour of the 2025 Invictus Games. Last week, during an interview with Good Morning America, Harry was asked about illness having a reunifying effect, and he replied, "Yeah, I'm sure throughout all these families, I see it on a day-to-day basis, the strength of the family unit coming together. I think any illness, any sickness brings families together. Can it bring his family together?" There have been a number of reports that Harry is angling for reconciliation. And it's also been reported that Harry and Meghan have held talks over what to do if their efforts to fix their royal feud fails. What to do if there is no reconciliation?
Well, the key word in all of this, as I'm sure Arthur will agree, is the word trust. Yeah. Given what's gone on in the last 2 years, it's very, very difficult for anybody really to trust Meghan and Harry. Meghan doesn't seem to be really bothered about coming to UK at all. There's been all this fuss made about the children being given the titles Prince and Princess. Well, I don't really see the point of that if they're not going to be part of the royal family. I mean, in fact, might even hinder them. And look at Zara and Peter Phillips. Peter Phillips, the oldest grandson of the Queen, he had no title. No.
That's certainly the impression I was given when before Archie was born, that was the kind of model they wanted to follow for their children.
Then now you've got that title.
They do now have those titles. I mean, they are entitled to the title.
No, they're absolutely entitled to the title. But I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that in America, which basically was formed on getting rid of a king, it does seem a bit ironic that you hold out for those titles. But that's what they wanted to do. And my feeling is that every penny they've made since they've gone to America has been basically associated with
trashing the family,
being members of the royal family and connected to the royal family. Yeah. So no wonder they want to somehow try to reconnect with the family. But as I said before, trust is not there.
Yeah, and away from the kind of minutiae of the feud and what has happened, news like this about his father is a big wake-up call, isn't it, to Harry, who's a long way away. Yeah. And I think you notice a shift in his tone, more conciliatory language now.
Yeah. When he was asked what was wrong with his father, he said, I'm not going to tell you. I thought that was the first positive thing he said for a while.
He actually said very little.
Because, like Robert says, trust, he's got a lot to make up. I mean, some of the things he said about Camilla and his brother, trashing them, and I just feel, and Catherine, he's got a lot of penance to do, in my view, before it can be a reconciliation. And he only spent 20 minutes, half an hour with his father. And if there had been some reconciliation, they could have probably gone up and spent the night at Sandringham with him, had dinner with him, if that had been what was on the cards. But it seemed to me that he got very short shrift and was back on a plane pretty soon to
as the Sun said, I think he did expect to go to Sandringham.
Yeah.
But again, with trust issues, he was redirected to Clarence House.
And who was that by, Rob? Would that have been at the King's
it would have been passed
discretion,
to Harry.
Or was it, as suggested, aides who thought, well, if he comes to Sandringham, as is reported, we'll never get rid of him?
Aides wouldn't. I think that is all true, but I don't think it would be aides acting on their own behest. I think it was obviously his decision, possibly with probably the King and Queen together, thinking, the Queen particularly thinking, well, the King has to rest.
Yeah,
he's got to get to Sandringham. Yeah. And if you go to Sandringham, then the conversations are going to carry on and on. The King's tired, and I think that with the treatment he's having, he's going to be more tired, and I think they'd already arranged for that to happen. My understanding is that Harry came of his own volition. He took it upon himself to come, probably because he wasn't really getting the chance to communicate very much with his father.
And I think that was absolutely the right decision to make.
I think I'd have done it. I think
we all would have jumped on a plane.
But then what it did was heighten the media story. People thought the King may be possibly worse than he is. And so a lot of things were going on that probably fuss. The last thing the King would probably want in this instance is fuss. He probably just wants to get to Sandringham, have dinner with his wife, and just relax.
Of course, it was his first round of treatment. You don't know how you're going to respond.
And that is very important to remember that. So I would have thought the Queen would be very protective. And whatever way you look at it, if you're this ill, you're going to be more agitated at things that are outside what you've already organised. There was a helicopter waiting to take him up to Sandringham, which had to wait. So 20 minutes, half an hour does suggest, you know...
And daylight, of course. They want to fly in daylight, don't they? So,
and also, the fact is, it was a very short meeting. I don't think the King was probably going to be in a fit state to sit and start discussing
it wasn't the right time to discuss
and
what's gone
long-term things, because he just hasn't got the focus and attention to be able to do that all the time. You know, it's emotional, and you don't need that. He certainly doesn't need it at the moment.
But a starting point.
It's a starting point for Harry, not necessarily for the rest of the royal family.
No, certainly not William. I mean, there's that's where the schism really is with his brother, and that's pretty bad. You know, I mean, everybody has a fight with their brother. I certainly had plenty of fights with my brother, and I'm sure Robert did with his. So you don't write about it, you don't boast about it, or you don't complain about it, which is what he did. And I thought that was pretty mean.
I think also the attacks on Catherine and the Queen, where they're not really in a position to hit back, has damaged his reputation, damaged the bond between his brother and his father. Although, you know, it wasn't that bad when he wrote about his father in the book. However, he did write about it, and so, but you know, so did Charles write in the Dimbleby book, spoke about his own mother and father. So, you know, you can look at it in another way.
Yeah, true.
Thank you both very much indeed. Great to see you. That is all we've got time for this week. Thanks to Arthur and Robert. If you want to join in with the debate, please leave a comment and make sure you subscribe if you don't want to miss a single episode. We will be back next week with all of the latest on the royal family. We hope you can join us, and we'll see you then.